Welcome to the WAGAS Innovation Talks. This podcast offers you an insight into recent innovations in the tech business, driven by research and industry insight. We are talking to researchers and professionals to share their expertise, experience, and projects with us. As a think tank and accelerator, we support tech startups and corporations in growing their business. We believe innovation is key to growth and hope to shine light on academic research and experts with real-life industry experience. To learn more, visit wagas-group.com and find all our podcast episodes plus articles and resources to expand your horizon on tech innovations. My name is Livia van Herden, Marketing and Sales Manager at WAGAS, and today we had the honor to welcome Jean-François Geneste from WARPA to the podcast. Jean-François graduated from ISAE-SUPAERO, a world leader in aerospace engineering higher education, with degrees in Aeronautical Engineering and Cryptology. Employed at EADS Astrium, he was Senior Manager of Innovations, focusing on telecommunications satellites. He worked at Airbus for 12 years, where he began as scientific advisor, ending his career there as vice president and chief scientist. Jean-François then spent 2 years as an expert advisor and professor of innovation and entrepreneurship at Skolkovo Institute of Science and Technology in Moscow, Russia. He is now the CEO at World Advanced Research Project Agency, WARPA, which is based in the Greater Toulouse area. Welcome to the podcast, Jean-François.
Thank you very much. Welcome to you too.
It's a pleasure to have you. So today's episode is about the aerospace industry. And to start off, let's explore the current state of the space industry. What do you think about the SpaceX project and similar companies, and how will the big players adapt to the new space market? What do you think?
Yes, probably I will give an opinion which is a bit weird for many people who might listen to this, because SpaceX is seen by people as a breakthrough company, making a lot of exploits and so on. So I don't really share this. Basically my opinion on this is that, first of all, we will speak about after that of the recoverable stages of the launcher. But if we look at the launcher by itself, the very goal of SpaceX first was to make, I would say, cheap launch and put industry into space, which was not the case because, before the other players in the field were, I would say, more or less state-owned companies, or at least under very strict control of the governments, and used to, I would say, more the military stuff than industrial one. And I should say, sleeping a bit, because everything, it was difficult in the beginning of the space history to make launchers, and then it became, I would say, more easy. And finally, they earned a lot of money for not doing much. So SpaceX decided to break this. In fact, Elon Musk went to Russia and saw what the Russians did, and just copied the Russian solution. Basically, this is it. And the Russian solution was a more industrial one, because it was derived from missiles and mass missiles standing. And this is the way he did it. So basically, just take a very simple engine working with kerosene mainly, instead of hydrogen and oxygen, and replicate as many as possible engines in your launcher, so that you have one engine, but many engines in the same launcher, so that you increase the production, the series production of your launcher, and then you get something which is quite cheap in the end. And the result is that he was able to cut the price by a factor of five, roughly five, in 15 years. But nothing, new, no real breakthrough. It just needed to have the means and the will to do this.
Yeah.
And then there is another part of the story which is never said by anyone, and which consists in, the players, traditional players. If I look at the Western players, so basically Ariane for Europe and Boeing and Lockheed for the USA, these guys have constraints, governmental constraints, which is what we call geographic return. And even in the US, which is not well known, these players do have some geographic return conditions to and SpaceX didn't play this game because they are a fully private company. So they put 3,000 people in the same place with the same language, roughly only one nationality around the table, and which makes a big difference with Europe, for example. Okay. Now, if you allow me, I would come to the recoverable stage.
Yeah.
So this is it's not it's logical in some way. What is the scheme of the traditional launcher manufacturers? Is that no recoverable piece of equipment in their launchers, and the alternative would have been infinite recovery. And obviously, everybody will understand that the truth is probably between the two. So, recoverable stages, how many times? Difficult to say like this, but sometimes at least. And it was quite obvious, and many people had thought about this. But what you need to know is that in this industry, until SpaceX did it, all the guys who proposed this were criticized and put in the corner at best, or fired sometimes. Sorry, and this is the way it worked. Conformism, we call it.
Yeah. Should we change the subject slightly? A lot of people are very curious about space travel. It sounds so futuristic and exciting. How close are we actually? What do you say?
It depends on what we call space travel. Space travel is, what do you mean? Do you mean interplanetary space travel, or space travel with, you go from, for example, Paris to Tokyo and with the space phase? What do you call space travel?
Interplanetary.
Interplanetary, okay. So I think the moon is going to be colonized very soon, by the end of the 2020s. Okay, and there is a competition between the USA and China, and I would bet that China will win. But we'll see what happens in the end. I wrote, by the way, kind of a science fiction book.
Oh, really?
It was written in 2012 and was released in 2015, I guess. And it's in French, and the title, if I translate it into English, is The Chinese Gap. And it tells that China will take over the West in 2029.
Yeah.
And, this is the beginning of the book. They land on the moon 60 years exactly at the same hour, same time as the Americans put their first step on the moon, inviting all the world in a very big ceremony, planting a flag, a Chinese flag, and saying, now this is China. Yeah. This is the beginning of the book. The moon is going to be colonized for sure, and very soon. The problem we have, and probably you thought about Elon Musk once again in SpaceX for Mars. This is much more difficult because the trip to go there is about say 8 to 9 months.
Wow!
Then you need to stay a bit, then you need to come back.
Yeah.
You need to survive during this time, and probably. A lot of people, even in the US authorities, said that clearly that those who are voluntary to go to Mars with Elon Musk will take a one-way ticket, most probably.
Oh gosh.
And as far as I remember, Elon Musk said, yes, but they are voluntary. It doesn't matter. And it also said something which is much more disruptive this time, saying the day we are on Mars, the laws of the Earth will not apply, which is much more disruptive and should bring people to wonder about what is the future of humankind in this context. Now, the big problem we have is propulsion. We are not able today to propel long spacecrafts to Mars very quickly. And my company, WARPA, is developing now a new kind of engine, which is a disruptive one, and with the aim to put Mars at 1 week.
Oh, wow.
In the 1960s, the moon was at 1 week of the Earth. And the next step for us is to put Mars at 1 week. So that you don't have only a one-way ticket, you have a two-way ticket.
Yeah.
would be preferable, don't you think so?
Yes, definitely. That sounds amazing.
Maybe I can give you some, I'm looking for investors for this, but it's not very expensive. It's about 10 million euros and for a development of 2 years. So it's quite reasonable for now.
Can you tell us more about your project, WARPA? You already started talking about it.
Oh, yes. So my company, I started this company in 2018, by the end of 2018. And basically, it has a portfolio of disruptive projects, which I figured out during my career in aerospace for about more than 30 years. So I was just speaking before of this engine. I have what I call Terra drone, which is a huge drone, which is an airship, in fact, but all terrain, all weather, no hangar, fully autonomous, so no pilot and so on, and which we are currently developing. Once again, we are looking for some funds, but it works quite well. So for a worldwide market and a monopoly worldwide, because there is no equivalent in the world. We also have some other projects for some disruptive launchers. So we target to be 5 times cheaper than SpaceX.
Wow.
Which might work.
Yeah.
Also a very big project for super high supersonic flight. Mach 3.2 compared to 0.8 today, basically, and for a consumption of fuel which will be less than subsonic planes, which is there again a breakthrough for kind of green aviation, and some other projects in cryptology also. Okay, so this is a rapid tour of what we propose for now.
Yeah.
So the huge project for the planes is it is very expensive, because there is what can trigger this high supersonic flight, which is about 2 billion euros, but then you need to make the plane by itself, which is about, difficult to say, but about 50 billion. We need to be a state backed project, probably.
Yeah. Now going back to SpaceX and these dominating companies, there has been a budget cut for NASA. And now these new companies are emerging. What are the real breakthroughs that come with all these new companies?
As I said before about SpaceX, SpaceX didn't bring any real breakthrough. And there are some breakthrough ideas, for example, for mining asteroids in space, which is quite a breakthrough idea. Now, to do this is not really breakthrough. The breakthrough would be new technology, new capability.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
today, nobody proposes anything in this way. Only what we call incremental innovation. So better engines, but not disruptive like the one I spoke about before. Better, cheaper. It turns around this, but no real breakthrough idea in terms of propulsion or I don't know what. If you freeze people and then you reanimate them once you arrive, it's also disruptive, but nobody is able to do this yet. I don't know, at least.
And how is Europe doing in the space industry? What is your estimation?
Europe is lagging, unfortunately. Lack of budget,
Yeah.
lack of will. Probably around the table of Europe, not everybody agrees on the goals and means, and that's it. I mean, it's kind of a disaster, and it's splitting. In addition, what I see, we had the Brexit, so the Brits are out of Europe now
Yeah.
and are on their own way on space. So two spaceports. They are building now two spaceports, and I don't know how they do this now in terms of launcher, but probably they will develop their own launcher. Germany does the same, while in Europe, which is strange, but this is the way. So spaceport plus new launcher, small launcher.
Yeah.
And France, unfortunately, in the 1940s or before, with the Maginot Line, which today has for name Ariane. And things are pretty easy, So Europe, in terms of space now, in my opinion, is completely collapsing. It's not irreversible, but we are in a hurry.
Yeah.
And the authorities have to change things deeply, but it doesn't seem to go that way, at least viewed from the French point of view.
And what do you think is needed for Europe to get ahead?
So, changing the system completely and changing the people at the head of it, because these guys are more or less civil servants and don't want risk, don't understand industry, and so on and so on. So it would take hours to speak about this. Basically, if I want to summarize, we will need to have visionary people, which we don't have. Real technical experts, which we don't have at the head. Okay, I don't say we don't have in the levels below, but with the will to take risks. So because no risk is taken, I can give you a clue of the kind of risk we take. Do you know any European program which has failed because too ambitious technically? Since the beginning of Spatial Europe, nothing, no failure. So it means that we never take any risk.
I see.
It's not good. The Americans failed,
Yeah.
and this is good. And this is good because when you fail, you learn much more generally than when you succeed.
Right.
And okay, so I just can notice what happened. So it's a real disaster, and too much politics in these spheres, and not enough technique and industry.
So you don't think it's a lack of innovation, actually?
It is.
It is.
But the guys who want to innovate are prevented, and this is, I would say, stolen if someone has a good idea by the authorities and the agencies, and you cannot, and they only favor the existing actors. For example, if I take the example, do you think that in Europe, in a European project, you might start up a company like SpaceX and make a launcher company a rival of Ariane? You will be killed before. Killed in the not in the proper sense, okay? In the,
Yeah, of course.
you know, it's not good at all, and this is what prevents Europe from progress. And we're
Now, we talked about space travel, interplanetary, and you mentioned flying from, what was it, Paris to London.
yes, space plane.
Can you elaborate a bit on that?
So yeah, you imagine, the ballistic missiles for nuclear bombing. So they start from a country, have a space phase, and go back down. So we could imagine to have kind of planes like this. It was studied. I think that the Virgin Galactic program of Richard Branson is a good example of what we will be able to achieve one day. And so we could have this, Paris Tokyo in 1 hour or something like this. Is feasible today. So this is only a question of investment, of course, and of will. So not disruptive in terms of technology. We have all the technology to do this today. So it's just a question of development and of money and taking some time to do this. But if we had the right budget, could be done in 5 years.
Wow, that's fast. So you see that in the future of traveling.
Yes, but this is just a question of will. If you put the money on it, just remember, today to develop some project, we have what we call TRL. TRL is technology readiness level, and you have some figure on the side. TRL1 is a lab product, and TRL9 is the series product, industrial one. And then when you develop your products, you go from TRL1 to 2, 3, and you go upwards like this until 9, and the final product. TRL1 is the lab product, so it means that you have some clue that is going to work. And just look back into history and at the Second World War, and when the Americans developed the atomic bomb, you can consider that the atomic bomb in 1941 was a TRL0 because you were not even sure that it would work. And in 4 years, they went from TRL0 to TRL9. It's just a question of means. They put the means on it, they put the money on the table, and it worked. If we were in a war context, we would go through the TRLs much quicker on the one hand, and we would take much more risk because it would be necessary. The problem of the world of today is a lot of money for things who have no interest at all, but no risk, and so on. And on the other hand, no real vision and ambition to do disruptive things.
Lastly, I wanted to talk a bit about quantum computing. What is it? What are the impacts, the limitations? Can you give us an overview?
Oh yes, quantum computing. Yes, quite a wide subject and of much interest. So the driver today for quantum computing is cryptology, and with the will to break all the crypto systems existing today, because all of these, it's a bit technical, but I will not go through this. But all the problems on which cryptology, modern cryptology, which was born in the 1970s, are built on is threatened by quantum computing. So this is a strategic issue, really, and all the countries in the world are looking at this, how to do this. So if you have the day when you have a quantum computer, you will break all the existing enciphering schemes of the planet. I'm speaking of the ones of today. There is some research today to make some post-quantum cryptographic algorithms. So I told you before in this interview that WARPA is working on this. So we have a post-quantum tractable algorithm, so which is going to be implemented in some space stuff in the upcoming 2 years. We have the contract yet. The problem is for quantum computers is, on the paper they work very well, but in practice they work a bit less well. Yes, so we know what to do. Basically, you have some logical doors in the. Everybody knows now how the traditional computers work. So you have AND doors, OR doors, NOT doors, and so on. You have the equivalent in quantum computers, which are called CNOT doors, Hadamard doors, and so on. And the problem is that we are able to build and to make individually such doors, and the problem occurs when connecting them. When connecting them, there is some noise, some interference between the doors and so on. And as soon as there are some doors, I would say, in the circuit, then no more works. So there are about maybe 15 or 20 different technologies to realize such doors. All of them have potential and have advantages, but they also have drawbacks. And in the end, no one is really emerging, at least to my knowledge, is really emerging today. We don't know why. In fact, for every technology, we know why, but solving the problem is far from being easy and obvious.
Yeah.
So we don't know yet when these computers will appear, but there is a company which is a bit silent, but which is called D-Wave, Canadian one, and which used another strategy for quantum computing, which is called quantum annealing, which work and which is based on a different process, physical process. The problem is that they have all the community of, I would say, traditional quantum computer players against them. There was a report by Google in 2015, in December 2015 exactly, which said that this is a real quantum computer. So, of course, not everybody agrees on this. And I hope for them and for everybody that their device is quite good. So they have some customers, and like Lockheed or Google have been their customers. To my knowledge, there is no European customer yet, unfortunately. But for me, this is a very good product, and which could be, in the beginning of computers, you're too young to know this, but there were digital computers and analog computers. The D-Wave one would be more an analog computer,
right,
compared to the others, which would be digital. And analog computers preceded the digital ones, and probably we will play the same game again for quantum computing.
Okay, interesting. Well, we've reached the end of our podcast episode. Thank you so much for your insight.
You're welcome.
You can read more at wagas-group.com. This has been your Innovation Talks podcast produced by Livia van Herde. Make sure to check back next month for the latest insight in innovation.